Ah. See, this is when I gotta move my hair out of the way. Hey Don, pretty ladies, what's going on? Tyrone God, 610 Finest. Let me sit back a little bit because I feel like I'm like super duper close to the camera. How is everybody? It's hot. I feel like I shouldn't complain because I know like in a couple of months winter's gonna be here, so I'm trying not to complain. Become a better you, Mr. Chef Trinidad. What's going on? Dora Coleman, howdy. Give me 1 sec. Gotta get my trusty stylus. You know why? Because, okay, so there's some things like when you touch the screen, because my nails are so long, it's like they're super long. Thanks, Dad. Oh boy. Okay, so pretty ladies, you're being ejected from, there you go. Thanks for coming. See you later. I'm not able for nobody tonight at all. So I know I generally ask this question, and I'm going to ask it again anyways, because I'm thoroughly fascinated by people who are so obsessed with boobs. Is it just because, like for guys, is it because you guys don't have any? Like, I just never understand. Like, there's at least every week, at least 2 or 3 people who come on my live, and they're like, oh, boobs, big boobs. Open up. I want to see boobs. Like, seriously? Like, for real. Mr. Wright. What's going on? Sorry. And it's always somebody that has like 1,000,000 letters. Yeah. Papa something or other 153 Gmail. I don't know you from no place, so yeah, I'm not accepting a chat request. But thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, like seriously, the way they carry on about, and I know somebody said before it's because they're probably like in a South Asian or Middle Eastern country where, like, you know, they don't really get to see the breasticles or whatever it is. But man, the way they act is just crazy. Hold on 1 second. Anyhow, maybe they don't get any. I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, they're really starting early. Like, like I literally, what, has it even been 5 minutes? Anyhow, welcome everyone. Pum Pum Posse, big up on herself. This is Wet Wednesdays. I am your host, AJ Badass Jones. We are going to do 2 great discussion pieces this week. I'm hoping to have a guest join in for one of the 2 discussions, but we'll see how that goes. Abolia, something or other. Listen to me. All these people requesting to be in the chat, please don't do it. Because 9 times out of 10, when you guys want a chat request with me, you don't have anything to say, or you want to tell me that you're in love with me, which is fabulous. Be in love all you want, but do it behind the scenes. Or you want to show me and the world your penis. I'm not able for none of those things today. It's hot. I'm looking like a pretty girl. I'm not trying to be frustrated. I'm trying really hard not to sweat and all that kind of stuff. So please try to raise up my blood pressure. I'm not here for any of it today. I'm trying to move the curtains. The curtains are the bangs. So I can see who's logged in. Yes, Wet Wednesdays. Mr. Skywalker Tattoo. What's going on? Okay, so today we are talking about when you are in love with a person who is in like. That's topic number 1. And then the second topic we're going to talk about is when you're in a relationship with someone, whether you're married or the person's your girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, partner, whatever you want to title it as, and that person hasn't made room for you in their life, or they've stopped making room for you in their life. I feel like that's going to be the heavier of the 2 conversations, although they're both pretty, you know, pretty touchy subjects, pretty sensitive subjects. But we're going to tackle both of them. They want to give, I don't want to see nothing. Listen to me. The abundance of penis that I get in my DMs, the abundance of tribute videos that I get in my DMs, I get pom pom pictures in my DMs. I'm good. I'm good. Like, honestly, if I want to see that stuff, I will just log on to one of the porn sites. Hi. One of the porn sites. That's Katika. She's down there. And yeah, look at all of that stuff. And you know, when I look at that stuff online, I don't have anybody talking to me. I don't have anyone harassing me. I don't have anyone with the expectation that I'm going to respond. Like, none of that stuff happens. What's up, baby? Say hi. You're not here for this today? You're not going to say hi to everyone? Okay. Well, that was very short-lived. For those of you who know, that's Catechus, Bradicus Catechus. Bobby Smith, 606, and worse, you don't have a picture? Yeah, we're not doing that. My DMs, I'll tell you something that's really interesting about my DMs, okay? So you know you've got the primary, you've got the general, and then you've got that section of your DMs where you can decide whether or not you want to accept someone's chat. So in that section of my DMs, there is a man, when he messaged me today, and when I looked at the message, it shows you the timeline of when the person first starts messaging you, even if you delete the messages. And when I scrolled up and I looked at the very first time this man messaged me, he messaged me 3 years ago. That was the first time. I've never responded to this person. Man, if I thought ambition was a really good thing, and if I thought persistence was a really good thing, I would feel bad for him, and I would say, you know what, let me give him a bly, let me make his day, and let me respond. But hell no. I'm not here for that kind of obsession with nobody that I don't talk to. That to me, like, I don't know, I guess it's one of those kind of like fandom fanatical things, because to me that's the equivalent of, like, not the equivalent of, but you understand what I mean. It's like messaging somebody who's well known, because I don't consider myself to be well known. I feel like I'm just average, like I'm just regular, super duper regular. But to me that's like messaging somebody who's really well known and they never respond, but you think like you're hopeful and you think at some point in time they're gonna say something. I'm not that person. If I didn't respond 3 years ago to your first message, yes. No, I'm not giving nobody no props for no. This is his Mr. Right. This is my shout out to him for his effort. The gentleman who messages me from like 3 years ago up until today, up until this morning, big up yourself. That's the most big up that you're going to get, because I'm not trying to talk to you. Okay, anyways, I'm not listening to you. Happy Canada Day! Oh yes, it's July the 1st. It's Canada Day in Canada. And blessings to my friend Suika. Happy Canada Day. And to everyone here in Canada who is out celebrating and eating 1-2 barbecue and gonna have to be like shooting off 2 fireworks. Happy Canada Day to you all. Salima, I saw you. Sorry, I was trying to say hi to you, but then I got kind of caught up in the conversation and such. So, Dawn, how did you log in and now you're logging in from somewhere else? So, as I said, today we are going to be talking about when you're in love with somebody who's only in like, they're only in the like stage. And we're going to be talking about when you're in a relationship with someone who hasn't made room for you in their life, or if they've stopped making room for you in their life. So, the first discussion, interestingly enough, my friend Mr. Metcalf, when I posted it on my page, when you love somebody who's only at like, he said to me he had to read it aloud. First, am I glowing? It's the highlight. He had to read it aloud for it to make sense. And I realized that because I guess it sounds like an incomplete sentence when you're reading it, but when you read it out loud and you sound it out loud, it makes a little bit more sense. You switched to your iPad? Okay, I get it. So the dilemma is, you know, when you are in love with somebody who is only at a like stage, or if you are the person who is at the like stage and there's somebody that's in love with you. So I was explaining to him that, you know, it's a situation where for most people, more than most people, because I really don't believe that there's anybody that genuinely wants to be single if they could be in the right relationship for them. So I think for every person wants to be in a meaningful, loving relationship, I would think. For some people, though, because, you know, they wear their emotions on their sleeves, or they enter into relationships or dating scenarios or dating situations with their hearts wide open and with their, you know, intentions all laid out and their cards laid out, what ends up happening oftentimes when they find somebody that they connect and they click with, they go headlong into falling in love with the person without pacing themselves. And I know some people will say, well, you can't control who you fall in love with. And to some degree, I agree with that. But you can determine how quickly you move in that relationship. Mr. Right. I spent over a decade literally in pursuit of a woman's heart who had me at like and lust, and I thoroughly loved her. Never, ever again. Yeah. Hey, Nick. So I think what ends up happening, really and truly, it's like one person has decided that this other individual is going to be their everything. That's going to be my wife. That's going to be my best friend. That's going to be the person I'm going to be in love with. That's going to be my vacation bae. That's going to be my boo thing. That's going to be my XYZ. That's going to be like my everything. And part of the problem is, you know, people love and relationships mature for people at different speeds. And there should never be an assumption that because you like the person, you love the person, and you're willing to invest the time and the effort means that that person should be or is at the same place emotionally that you are. And it's not to say that that person will never get to a place of liking, so moving beyond like in order to love you. It's just honestly, sometimes it's scary when a person is so deeply emotionally invested and you're not there yet, that it scares you enough into pulling back. Like for me on a personal level, I examine the potential of the relationship when I start dating someone. And so when I meet somebody that I'm really interested in, I say to myself, what is the furthest that I could possibly go with this person? And for me in those moments, I decide if it's just going to be sex, if we're going to have like a really great friendship and sex, if I don't want to have sex with you because I'm interested in getting to know you more and the sex can wait, or if I see us being like, you know, a long-term type of thing where I can see you actually being the other half of my life. Okay? And so, hey sis, what ends up happening, I find oftentimes, maybe because of my personality and because I'm so out there and honest and all that sort of stuff, what ends up happening is, you know, I'll start talking to somebody and I really like the person and it's a good vibe and we're getting to know one another. And then the person kind of is in like a rush for us to be something. And that's the part that throws me off, because I'm thinking like a month, maybe 2 months into getting to know somebody, you don't really know the person. And I know that sometimes, you know, it's said that, you know, you can meet somebody in 3 months that has better intention for you than somebody that you've known 3 or 4 and 5 years. And that's true. And I agree with that. But if warning bells are going off for me, where something in my mind and something in my heart is saying like, slow down, don't rush. Don't rush. But like seriously, if something is saying slow down, I've learned to pay attention to that. Because what ends up happening oftentimes is that there's the bubble of euphoria. And there's so much stuff that happens in the bubble of euphoria. And the bubble of euphoria is usually the first 3 to 6 months of any relationship. And you will find a lot of time, I promise you, if you go back and you examine different relationships that you've been in or different relationships that you know people have been in that bubble of euphoria, in that time frame, people get pregnant unexpectedly. People end up, you know, going through emotional upheavals unexpectedly. People make irrational choices and decisions about leaving their home to move in with the person, only to find out that they don't want to be with the person because it's not what they thought it was going to be beyond sex. And then they have to move out and start all over again, and it wrecks the relationship. There's so much stuff, good and bad, that happens. in that first 3 to 6 months that I really think that people cannot be emotionally or mentally rational because they're in that bubble of euphoria. Let's see. You say don't rush. So for me, I honestly feel like if people could take the first 6 months of any relationship, especially in this day and age, to actually focus on getting to know the person and finding out the ins and outs of the person and finding out if you really and truly want to be with the person beyond their looks, beyond the sex, beyond the, the warm, fuzzy conversations and all the things that make you feel good. If people could take maybe 6 months to really examine that first phase of the relationship, you might save yourself a lot of headache and heartache. So someone took it upon themselves to try to call me on the call-in line while I'm on the live. I'm not gonna cuss. I'm not gonna carry on crazy. So I'm gonna pause the conversation for a minute of what we were just discussing. I just would like to know why anyone would think that I would stop in the middle of my life, unless it's an emergency, but with one of my pitney them, or one of my best friend them, or somebody with me love, like, unless it's one of those situations, I don't know you from anywhere. Please explain to me why you think I would cut in the middle of my life to answer your phone call. Sorry. Okay, whew. Don, look, I'm taking a deep breath. Whew, okay. I'm not gonna cuss. The audacity of people, this is when people feel like they should have access to you. And listen to me, don't let me have to drag you and have me on the people's live Instagram carrying on crazy. Anyhow, back to the discussion. I knew I should have won a split before I started. I don't know why. I felt like tonight was going to be a crazy night, but it's okay. I'm rubbing my knees, I'm gonna woosah, and take a deep breath. I'd rub my ears, but I have jewelry in my ears, so anyhow. So back to what I was saying. I really honestly feel like we're in an age now where instant gratification is such a big thing to people, where, they have to feel it like right away. It has to be like a pow, pow, pow. And people have somehow unlearned how to pace themselves in a relationship so that there's longevity to the relationship in the enjoyment of the relationship. I'm finding often what happens now is within the first 6 months of getting to know someone, it's like all the bells and whistles, it's like all the, all the feels, all the wonderful things, all the great things, until you have that first argument. And then people don't know how to recover, because it's like, oh, you weren't like this. You weren't like this when we first met. I didn't know that you were so miserable. I didn't know that you were so argumentative. Why do you want to argue all the time? Why can't we just go back to being how we were before? Oh, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be, And the reason that people make those statements, again, is because they haven't taken the time or paced themselves in that first 3 to 6 months while they're in the bubble of euphoria. People want the glory without the work. Absolutely. Love to see your boobs. Listen to me, sir. Let me help you out and just eject you from the conversation. Sorry. I can't. I've just come to expect that every week somebody is going to be talking about my breasts and wanting to see my boobs. It's okay, he's gone. I ejected him from the conversation. Truth, a friend of mine always says today's society wants a microwave time frame with everything. But it's true. I feel like people are in such a rush to be in a relationship that's so visible and so public so that they can prove to people that they're in a loving relationship. And it's absolutely crazy to me, because it's like, I feel like in this day and age, especially because people are always on the attack, people are always on the hunt, people are always looking for something. Thanks. Nick, stop distracting me. But I feel like because people are always, people should go slower at posting their relationships to protect their relationships. You know, people are so concerned about like, oh, I got to post for the gram, or I got to post for social media. You know, I need a bae so that everybody can see that I'm happy. And people go through this sense of fake happiness. And that's why you see so much turnover in relationships. Because like you have one couple that's posted pictures, and then 6 months later, one of the two of them is posting pictures of themselves with somebody else because that relationship hasn't worked out. Because again, once they get out of the bubble of euphoria, or the bubble of euphoria starts to deflate or it pops, they don't know what to do with themselves. And then the next course of action is just to break up. It's you almost can't say to somebody, you know what, I really like you and I really want to get to know you better. Let's slow down the pace. They take that as rejection. They take that personally. They take that as personal offense instead of hearing the message that I like you. I want to spend time getting to know you. I would like to see what the potential of this is. I would like to see where this can go. Let's slow down. No, what they hear is you're rejecting me. What they hear is, oh, you're not willing to love me back. Oh, what they hear is that, oh, you don't want me. And it's never any of those things, you know? I can't control what you feel. I can just govern myself. And if the way that you feel makes me feel uncomfortable, something is wrong with that. Dora Coleman writes something. Sometimes the bubble of euphoria doesn't last long, sometimes only a month. Very true. Then sometimes people are quick to try to change or manipulate a person to their ways. Also very true. You know, and like I said, I'm an old woman. I say it all the time. You know, I've learned a lot of lessons over the years of my life. And, you know, at the phase that I am now of being in the dating game, I try to pace myself. You know, and again, I may meet somebody where like, oh my gosh, like it's really, really great. Even if we've had sex, even if the sex is phenomenal, you know, there's still a component of emotionally and mentally bonding with that person that has nothing to do with sex. And that's part of the issue too. It's like people think that, oh my God, we have really great sex. Yeah, we're supposed to be together. And that really and truly just isn't always the case. You can be in a relationship with a person where you guys have the most amazing, sweet as fuck ever, but you can't have a conversation. And every time you try to have a conversation, it becomes an argument. Every time you try to have a conversation, you guys never see eye to eye, and you can never get to that place of agreeing to disagree. Every time you have a conversation, it feels combative, but you fuck, and the fuck is amazing. And so you feel like that should override everything else that's happening in the relationship. And trust me when I tell you, if you have a relationship where the best thing about your relationship is the sex, your relationship is doomed to fail. I'm not trying to put crosses on anybody or, you know, diminish or minimize anybody's relationship. But if the best thing about your relationship is the fuck, your relationship is doomed to fail. You're always going to be unhappy. Mr. Wright, funny thing, AJ, my relationship may just be in the bubble of euphoria, but within the bubble, I asked my first lady some hard questions. I told her that we cannot allow our love to overshadow reality. Absolutely. See, but that's the difference though, because even though you're in the bubble of euphoria, you're having practical conversations about moving forward. You know, when I'm talking about people who are they're locked in that bubble of euphoria, they're not thinking practically. They're not thinking of a sound mind. The difference with you, Mr. Wright, what I know about you is that you've patiently waited for your lady love. And in the time frame that you've waited for your lady love, you've worked on yourself. So it's not like you've entered into that relationship in a giddy-headed way. It's not like you entered into that relationship like, oh my God, I'm in love. For what I know of you and the way in which you paced yourself before you got to this relationship, you worked hard on yourself first. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people, even though they've worked hard on themselves, when they get into that relationship, they completely lose themselves to the bubble of euphoria. Because it's like, oh my God, it's got all the feels and it's got da, da, da. From what I know of you, Mr. Wright, you're not that person. You're more practical and you're more level-headed, but because you've done the work, because you've done the time, because you've learned lessons from your past relationships and the past failings that you've gone through. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Dora Coleman, that is usually when cheating begins. You are sexually attracted but find common ground in somebody else. And it's true, you know. Sex is wonderful, but if you can't spend time with the person in a meaningful type of way, and when I say meaningful, I mean like sit down and watch a movie, sit down and have a meal together, sit down and laugh and joke about something. If you can't go to the person when you're feeling sad or when you're feeling upset or when you're feeling confused or when you've had a long, hard day, and it's been stressful because every time you go to the person, they're not really listening to what it is that you have to say, and there's no meaningful conversation. If you cannot turn to the person for assistance, you know what I mean? Babe, I've got this great business idea, you know, and they kind of brush it off, or they're not listening to you, or they're not taking you seriously. Like, that's when people start to go outside of their relationships to look for something else, because again, although the sex is wonderful, everything else is lacking in the relationship, and you cannot be sustained with any sort of longevity through that. Uh-oh. Mr. Right? I don't know. I'm ignoring him. So, I'm going to have a sip of water. In my long-standing Wawa cup. And because I can't get to the States, I can't change my Wawa cup. But don't judge me. But yeah, I mean, I've been in situations where I really like the person, you know, we're on a good path of getting to, I know you see everything, it's okay. We're on a good path of getting to know one another, and then it becomes rushed, you know, and then everything becomes about, you know, oh, I can't wait for us to be together. Oh, I can't wait for us to be a couple. Or, oh, I can't. And in my mind, I think to myself, like, we've known each other for a month. Like, I haven't even decided, like, how have you decided that we're going to be a couple, you know, without having a conversation with the person you want to be in a relationship or with? Do you know what I mean? Like a practical conversation. And again, you know, the only person's emotions and thoughts that I can govern are my own. And I get that I can't control the pace of what somebody else feels, but you have to be mindful of that. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that I haven't been on the other side. I've been on the other side where, you know, I have fallen absolutely in love, and that person's just not there yet. And you feel like they're rejecting you, you know? So when I say that it feels like rejection and all those other things, I'm also speaking from a place of experience where I've been on that end of being the person who's been in love and the other person is only at like. But if you're mature enough and really invested in being in a relationship with that person, you'll actively listen to what it is that they're saying to you, and you'll actively listen so that you can respond accordingly, not from a place of hurt, but from a place of actually being about what you say you're about, which is wanting to be with the person. Because whether that person is at a stage of love or like, there's still work that has to be done in order for you to develop a relationship with that person. Love alone is not going to make the relationship last. Love is one component, just like sex is one component, right? Marie. You know, there are many facets and many levels to being in a relationship. And again, love is one component. And I know that people feel like love is the great equalizer that's going to get you through a relationship, but honestly, it's not. And not to say that it, you know, that to minimize it or that it's not about that. Love is one component of the relationship. Because you can love the person and a few months down the road find out that you don't like the person. You love them because you've developed an emotional attachment to them, but then you find out things like you don't like the way that they chew because they chew with their mouth open. Or, you know, you didn't know that they're a mouth breather. Or you didn't know that when they fall asleep at night, they snore like a bear. Or you didn't know things like they don't like holding hands. They don't like hugging. The only time that they show physical affection is when you guys are fucking, right? They don't like to kiss outside of, you know, like a quick smooch or that kind of thing, like kiss it. You know what I mean? So you can love a person and then start to find out that there are things that you don't like about the person. And that's why I say that love alone is not enough to sustain a relationship. Just the same way as good sex alone is not enough to sustain a relationship. There are a lot of components to building a healthy relationship. You know, it's the intimacy, it's the good communication, it's the responsibility, it's the candor, it's listening, it's, you know, actively listening, communication, like, you know, it's all of those things. There isn't any one thing that sustains a relationship. It's a composite of things. I think a woman that can hold a conversation on any level of topic is very sexy. I completely agree. I absolutely agree. So, especially in new relationships, as I said, when people are in that bubble of euphoria, everything is great. Everything is golden. Everything is seen through rose-colored glasses in that first 3 to 6 months. You may see a person and on the outside, she looks physically great. When you hear her speak, her conversation is wonderful. People like her. People gravitate towards her. She's got a great personality, but that's her public face. Behind closed doors, what is she like? She may be a miserable, nagging woman. He may be a crotchety old man who doesn't like to go anywhere or do it. You understand what I'm saying? It's like people build these fantasy relationships while they're in that first 3 to 6 months because you're in love and you're not seeing things clearly enough. And I really and truly think that happens with everybody. I don't care who it is. It happens with everybody. And that's what causes people to make irrational decisions within those first 3 to 6 months that sometimes become regrettable, in the next 6 to 12 months when they find out that they're pregnant for somebody that they no longer want to be with because that bubble of euphoria has popped. How many times do you see or how many times have you ever thought of somebody that and I know plenty of people that's happened to, where in the first 3 months they're so in love, nobody's using protection, next thing you know, somebody's pregnant, the person who got the person pregnant thinks that it's too soon, they don't want to have the baby, the person who's pregnant wants to keep the baby because they want to keep, it just becomes this whole crazy mess because people are not taking time to truly get to know one another. They're not pacing themselves. Because the overriding feeling is the endorphins and the adrenaline and all the wonderful, happy feels and the things that feel good that are not practical for sustaining a relationship. Great sex cannot sustain a relationship. Love alone cannot sustain a relationship. Period. Sorry, let me read some comments, right? The agent is very different from the superstar. Hey, Mo, how are you? It's hot. I don't even know what time it is. Sorry, I'm leaning over so I can look and see the time. It is it 9:02? So the second part of the discussion, I'm waiting for my friend, Mr. Cooking with Flavors, to log on so that we can talk about when you're in a relationship and the person that you're in a relationship with has stopped making space for you. But for us to continue the same discussion and talking about, when you're in love with the person that's only in Mr. Right, it turns into a soap opera within seconds, all because the bubbly euphoria consumed by thoughts. Yeah. George Clinton said it best. Spit down, make babies? I don't know what that means. Curvy Empress, what's going on, beautiful? How are you? I don't think that there's a very small percentage of the population of people, but I think for the most part, people want to be in loving relationships, and I think if people could choose, they would want to be in healthy relationships. The problem is sometimes we're sacrificing one for the other because of our desire to be in a relationship. And, loneliness is not a comfortable feeling. And being alone is sometimes a very depressing feeling. But I always feel like it's better to not be in a toxic and unhealthy relationship just for the sake of being in a relationship. It's better to be by yourself and do work on yourself before you get into a relationship that becomes emotionally and mentally damaging for you. Because then you have more work to do in repairing the damage that's been done. We live in an age now, someone had said earlier, I think it was Dora, or Mr. Wright, about, these microwave relationships where it's like, if you think of like a bag of popcorn, it's flat, you take it out, you can smell all the processed stuff that's in it, and you put it in the microwave and you push the timer, and within a few short minutes, that bag starts to pop and it starts to full up and it starts to become full. And then when you take it out of the microwave, it's all buttery and it smells. That's how these relationships are in the first 3 to 6 months. They're like microwave popcorn. You meet the person, that's the flat bag, right? Then you put it in the microwave, and this is where you guys start dating and you start to get to know one another, and all the feels start to develop, and then it starts to pop like the bag of popcorn, and like all these sparks are flying. You guys have sex and it's great, and you kiss and it's great, and all these feelings are bubbling and popping and popping and popping and becoming buttery like the popcorn, you know, and then the timer goes off and the bag is full, and you open it and it's aromatic, and like in the relationship your heart is full of love, and you're like, oh my God, I need to be with this person for the rest of my life. And then you hit a roadblock, because like in that bag of popcorn, sometimes you get the little pieces that are not popped, or you get the pieces that are halfway popped, and you're not paying attention because you've grabbed a handful of popcorn and you've shoved it in your mouth, and as you're chewing and you're umming and ahhing because the popcorn tastes so good, which is the love part of being in the bubble of euphoria, all of a sudden you bite down on the kernel that's unpopped, and it hurts your teeth, which resonates into your jaw, which resonates into your brain, and now you're feeling pain, right? Those are the glitches that you experience where you're in the bubble of euphoria, because you're not paying attention, because all you're thinking about is like the popcorn, you know, the taste and the texture and the saltiness and the butteriness and the aromatic flavors, and the way that it smells and the way that it melts in your mouth and it tastes good. That's what it's like being in the bubble of euphoria when you're in a relationship in the first 3 to 6 months. Everything is glorious. The way that the person chews with their mouth open doesn't bother you, none at all, until the bubble of euphoria pops. And then you're saying to yourself, did he always chew that way? The fuck? Like, were you born in a barn? Why do you chew with your mouth open? Or, you know, you slept beside the person a number of times and it's always warm and cuddly, and now you're starting to really see the person for who they are, and you're starting to notice the flaws, and you're starting to notice the blemishes, and you're starting to notice the little hard kernels within the mouth full of really wonderful tasting popcorn. And now you start to say to yourself, was that happening before? And I just wasn't paying attention to it. Marie, stop being hungry. But you understand what I mean. It's you know, it's one of those kind of things. Like, and I say to people all the time, gauge your relationship after you've had your first disagreement. It will tell you a lot about your relationship and the way in which you recover from that first argument. I say that to people all the time. Young people, middle-aged people, old people, from you're getting into a relationship and they're talking to me like, oh my God, I'm so in love, and the person is so perfect and they make me feel so wonderful and I love everything about them. And then my question is, have you guys had an argument yet? No? Okay. And then they're like, you know, what do you mean? And I always say to people, always, when you have your first argument or your first disagreement, because it doesn't necessarily have to be an argument, let me know how you feel after that's happened. Because sometimes people have difficulty recovering from arguments or disagreements, or they don't realize that there are things that they disagree on because they're so focused on being in the love bubble and being in the bubble of euphoria that they forget that there's this whole other piece where you have different personalities. And you're not always going to agree on things. And it's not to say that you're always going to disagree on something, but there's no two people on the planet that agree on everything. If there is, please somebody let me know who they are. Let me know. Let me know who they are. I'd like to know. Yep, that first disagreement will test your thinking. It absolutely will, you know, and it's not to say that it has to be a situation where, you know, both people come to a happy or harmonized agreement. Sometimes that doesn't happen either. But the most mature thing that you can do is agree to disagree. But as long as you stay in that headspace of like, oh my God, I love them, and there's nothing that they can do that's ever going to be wrong, and I can't ever see us not be... Put all of that aside. It's wonderful to have all those feelings, but put all that aside and think practically. Yes, or when you call them out on something, absolutely. If there's a couple like that, guaranteed there's an abuse in the relationship. You know, I'm not going to say it. I won't be the one to say it. Sorry, just logging in. Yeah. So that's the discussion piece. Estelle Marie, I can say my relationship has opened me up to so much. I have learned a lot about myself. That's a beautiful thing. Mr. Wright, my queen and I are almost flawlessly alike in mind, yet there are some things we do not agree on, but there's a perspective I told her about. But, you know, I feel like part of the point of being in a relationship is to be able to grow and develop with that person. You know what I mean? And the hope at some point in time that even with your differences, that you guys become a well-oiled machine. And people always seem to think that you have to think exactly the way that the other person thinks in order for there to be harmony in your relationship. And that's absolutely bullshit, because then you lose yourself as a person. The point is for two people to come together to become a well-oiled machine. You know what I mean? It's like there's two different parts, but the two parts together, the two cogs together are what make the machine run. You know, you can have a difference of opinions, and you can agree to disagree. And in those moments of agreeing to disagree, it's a learning moment. It's a teaching moment. It should be an aha moment. It should be a perspective changer or a perspective broadener. But a lot of times people take offense to like, oh, well, I don't know why you don't think the way that I think, or the way that you think is wrong. You can't tell somebody that the way that they think is wrong. What you can do is help to educate them. What you can do is help to broaden their perspective. What you can do is help to give them perspective. But my advice to people who are in love with somebody who is only in like with them is pace yourself. You know? It's not to say that you should give up, but you should definitely pace yourself. You can't force anyone's emotions. You can't force anyone to feel the way that you feel. And you can't force anyone to go at your speed. You have two choices. You can either slow down and pace yourself, or you can lose out on a really great opportunity at being with somebody who is pacing themselves. Did I say being with somebody? Being with someone who is pacing themselves. You know, there's nothing wrong with going slow. I don't know what everybody is in such a rush to do, but there's nothing wrong with going slow. Sorry, Mr. Rye. Approaching every argument, disagreement in love will make things harmonious. Differences are a necessity. It makes chances to learn more pleasurable based on one's views. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mr. Cooking with Flavors is in the chat, and he is going to be joining me for the second part of our discussion, which is when you're in a relationship where the person that you're with doesn't make room for you in their life. So I'm going to try to chat request. I'm usually not very good at this. So we're going to see how this goes. Oh, sorry. I'm moving this around. La la la. I never get a chance to say, but I appreciate everyone who joins in the discussions and everyone who shares and everyone who gives input and adds value to these discussions. Do that. So the conversations are always definitely more meaningful when I have, so I don't know what happened to Mr. Cooking with Flavors, but he didn't join my chat. Oh, there we go. Why is it buffering? Is it buffering on my end? Is that what's happening? I think maybe it's buffering on my end. Can you guys see me okay? Like, is it glitching? Is it being weird? Somebody tell me. I think it's glitching. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it's not doing anything weird. It's not buffering. You can hear me fine? Okay. I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to get him to join the live, but it's not behaving itself, so I don't know. Yeah, it just kept it won't let me in. I was going to make a joke about that, but okay, let's try this again. Okay, I'm trying to add you again to see what's happening. If it doesn't work, we might just have to do this portion of the conversation just within the chat itself. Yeah, it's not picking. Yeah, we're not going to touch that, Mr. Right. We're just going to leave that one alone. Yeah, for some reason, it's not allowing me to connect. So we might just have to do it this way. So I almost feel like part one of the discussion and part two, the discussion kind of almost tie in. The reason I say that is because, you know, people are in love with this idea of being in relationships and getting married and it's mad disrespectful of IG. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So try one more time and see, try requesting one more time and see if it comes through. Because I'm not sure why it's not letting me connect with you. But I feel like part one and part two of the discussion are connected, excuse me, just in the way that, you know, with people being in love and people thinking long term about relationships, but not preparing themselves for the long term part of the relationship. Mr. B status, thank you, appreciate it. I am well, thank you. How are you? Sorry. So with being in love and people thinking about, you know, long-term relationships and spending their life with a person, I find a lot of times what happens is people don't give enough forethought to what that relationship means when you guys come together collectively. And when I say that, I don't mean it's like a, you know, they'll come and visit on the weekends. Both points do tie together. Come try logging on, log off and then log on again. So Cooking with Flavors, CW, like completely come out of Instagram live and then come back into the live and see if it'll let you request to join me. Hopefully it'll stop buffering and you can get in. You have to wiggle your way in. We're gonna leave that alone though. So again, I find that oftentimes, you know, because people are locked in this headspace of being in love and not really, they're more so thinking with their heart than with their head. People are not always the most practical. And so in those moments, again, while you're usually in the bubble of euphoria, or, you know, you're like, oh my God, I want to live with you. I want us to move together. I want us to get married. I want us to be in this long-term relationship. Everything's so wonderful. Let's do this. Let's be together. I don't want to be without you. And a lot of times what ends up happening is, you have to hear me out on this one. So a lot of times what ends up happening is one person moves to be with the other person in their space, or the other way around. I always recommend against that, because what ends up happening is, honestly, 8 out of 10 times that I've ever spoken to anyone who's done this, is the person who the space belonged to originally, who's had their love interest move in, at some point becomes territorial about their space because they haven't made proper space for the person to be in there with them. It's like they say to themselves, I just want this person around, you know, just leave everything behind, come live with me, you're going to be good, just come live here. But they haven't made proper space for that person to be there with them in their space. And then it gets awkward when the energy doesn't blend anymore. Absolutely. So I will tell a personal story. There was somebody that I was dating a couple of years ago, and I went, he's in Delaware. And so I went to Delaware to go visit him the first time for 4 days. And it was good. And it was kind of weird for me because I'm not a person that really likes to sleep in a bed because I have really bad insomnia. And I always feel like, you know, for people who don't sleep with like a TV in their room, or they don't sleep with any sort of sound, it makes it really weird and creepy for me, especially when it's total silence, right? And so I said to him, like, I'll come upstairs and I'll lay down with you, but as soon as you fall asleep, I'm going to go downstairs because most of the time I'm up at random points in the night watching TV. And that was fine. And, you know, it was okay. There were some things that felt kind of off, but then I thought, okay, well, because I'm visiting and I'm in his space, you know, let me just kind of take time and see how things go. And so it's like, you know, that was all well and good. And then a month later, This is why for the past 2 years, it's been very heavy on me to make room, clean up your mental, physical, and emotional. That's from S. Marie. Absolutely. So then a month later, I went back to visit him. Same thing. The plan was for me to be there for 4 days. I left after the third day because I started to really feel like I was in his space. And he started to let me know that I was in his space. And within his space, there are certain things that he likes. So, and that's with anybody. Because I know that, like for me, I have OCD, and so it's like, there's a certain way that I like my cups arranged. There's a certain way that I like my cutlery arranged. There's a certain way that the towels are to be arranged in the cupboard, But that's also because I don't have nobody living with me. You know what I mean? And if my children, when they've lived here, they've kind of become used to the routine of the house. And even, they would, put things away in a way that wasn't comfortable for me because it didn't fit in with my OCD. But I've also had to learn to compromise so that I say to myself, if they've put all the laundry away, I can't be upset because they've put all the laundry away. Let me meet them halfway by rearranging it the way that I need it to look. If they've washed all the dishes and put the dishes away, I can't be upset with the fact that my son has put the cheese grater in the cupboard with the cups instead of underneath on the Lazy Susan. The fact is that he made the effort to put the dishes away. Let me just move the cheese grater to down where the Lazy Susan is and not complain. Because a lot of times we give ourselves headache and heartache and aggravation about the simple things because we're unwilling to compromise. So I've had to learn to compromise. This particular person, he very clearly let me know that I was in his space. The craziest part about it is he wanted me to move in with him. And I had to say no. And I had to explain to him, like, you're unwilling to make room for me. He's like, oh no, I asked you to come be here. I said, asking me to come live with you versus making space for me to be in your space is two different things. And I know too many people who are in relationships like that, where they've moved into someone's space, but the person hasn't made room for them. And even worse, when it's a situation where the person has left their country to go live with another person. So they've left their home, they've left their job, they've left financial security, they've taken everything that they have and their last, $10, not literally 10, but you understand what I mean. They've taken their last $10 to move to another country to be with this person, but this person hasn't made space in their life for them to come. So it's like, in the person's bedroom, there's a closet, but they haven't taken stuff out of the closet or made room in the closet for their love interest to put their things in the closet. They haven't cleared out a drawer so that their love interest has at least one drawer where they can put their things in. They're used to, peeing on the toilet seat and not really having to worry about it because they're the only person that pees in the bathroom. But now you have someone coming to live with you, so you can't pee on the toilet seat. You understand what I said? Like, you have to be mindful of those things. Pepperamary! Cooking with flavors. That's why there is a necessity to understand what makes one be so meticulous. He wanted to show territorial dominance. That shit doesn't work with me. It just doesn't. Like, especially if you've asked me to come live with you, I'm not coming to live there to be your slave. I'm not coming to live there just to make you feel good. If I'm coming to live there, it's for us to build a life together, in which case you need to make space for me. And if you cannot make space for me, if you are unwilling to make space for me, I'm out. Simple. Why would I stay there to feel like I'm a burden and start to minimize my self-esteem to feel like I'm hindering your life in some sort of way? That just doesn't make any sort of sense. Mr. Wright, if you don't make room for a person to stay, then where do you expect someone to stay when they arrive? Well, and this is just the thing. It's like, a lot of times, because the person hasn't thought it through, because they're in the bubble of euphoria, all they're thinking to themselves is, it would be really great if you were here all the time so that we could spend time together when it's convenient for me. And that's what it becomes. It becomes about what's convenient for that person who's asked you to move in with them because they haven't made space for you. They just know that when you guys are together, it feels really great to them, and they want to have that feeling all the time. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's not a question or a matter of whether or not you want to have the feeling all the time. That's okay. But you have to make room for the person to be there so that they feel that same feeling all the time. Because it's not just about them coming to make you feel good. There should be a balance where you are making them feel good as well. Mr. Wright, peeing on the seat is nasty. I'm just saying. Cooking with flavors. If I ask you to come live with me, I need to know how much space you need so I can make sure we come together in harmony. That is exactly what it becomes. And that's the whole thing. It's like, if you haven't thought it through about what it's going to look like, especially if the person is moving into your space, if you haven't thought it all the way through, slow down, don't rush. Take your time and actually think it all the way through. Think about a game plan. Think to yourself, what will this look like for the next 6 months to a year? Again, because people are in the bubble of euphoria, because people are in that headspace of like, oh my God, I'm so in love. Oh my God, I need this feeling around me all the time. They rush to be in situations and rush to be in relationships and rush to be in living circumstances with the person because they think that that feel-good moment is going to be it all the time, 24 hours a day, day and night. It's not. When you're dating, you know what makes those feel-good moments so amazing is because you don't see the person all the time, because you're not around the person 24 hours a day, because you have designated dating times, because you have designated moments and designated weekends together, and it's something to look forward to. It's a completely different thing when that person is living in your space day to day, because now you have to think about how much soap does that person use when they're washing themselves? You know, how long do they take their showers? Are they the kind of person that drinks from the carton instead of drinking from a glass? You know what I mean? You have to think about the things that balance you versus the things that they are, and the things that balance them versus the things that you are. Because there's a lot of shit that doesn't happen because you don't live with the person, because people are always putting their best foot forward when you're dating because you don't see the person 24 hours a day. Even when you're doing long distance relationships, that makes it even crazier because, you know, am I trying to argue with you in the 3 or 4 days that I have to spend with you? Absolutely not. I'm trying to fuck, eat, love upon you, walk someplace where we can hold hands and spend time together in the most meaningful way possible. I'm not trying to argue, fuss, fight, or any of those things. But then you never see the true person because your focus in those moments is making the most of those moments. But if you're going to ask somebody to move in with you, you need to think about what that looks like 6 months to a year out. How does that person spend money? How does that person, you know, take care of household responsibilities and bills and shopping? Does that person cook? Is that person cleanly? Is that person cavalier and like, an oh well kind of person? Or does that person have OCD where everything needs to be in place? It's a lot of things that we don't think about. And so what ends up happening is people don't make proper space for that person within their space and for that person within their life. Cooking with flavors. Sorry, scrolling back down. Oh my goodness, it's going fast. I think it all the way through. If I'm committed to that point, I'll ask you to pick furniture with me so that you can feel comfortable in the space. Pepper Marie, how do you squeeze the toothpaste out? All of that. Do you squeeze it in the middle? Do you squeeze it from the bottom? Like, people don't realize that there are so many little things that are so important to a relationship that could be detrimental to a relationship and cause an argument and cause the failure of a relationship because people haven't actually taken the time to sit down and think about those things, how those things may impact them, what they can budge on, what they can't budge on, and how they're going to have that conversation with the person that they're with. People are so scared of conversation. It's absolutely crazy to me. How much weed do you smoke? Do you know how to eliminate the smell? Which laundry detergent? There's so much stuff that people don't. Can you stash a 40 in your bra? Well, listen to me. Come off my line, please. First of all, for a boob moment, yes, I can stash a 40 underneath my boobs. We're not going to talk about that because that's not part of the conversation. But anyways, I think, like I said, people get lost in They get lost in love before they start thinking about y'all don't hype him up, please. Don't hype him up. So my live is going to time out in about 25 seconds. I am going to log back in and come continue this chat with you guys. We're we're on the conversation of when you're in a relationship with a person who hasn't made room